Here we go.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to this this webinar that we're excited to share with you.
Yeah, really happy to be here.
Yeah.
Glad y'all could make it.
Me too. So, the title of our webinar is called "Create Simple, Powerful Success Rituals to Reprogram Your Brain for Good."
Yeah. So let's just really want to invite you to take a moment to really settle in, and I know everybody's probably had a wild day, so just give yourself the gift of settling in and getting rid of all your distractions, turning off your phone, turning off Facebook or email, and just give yourself the opportunity and the gift to just really pay attention and see what we can come up with together in this next 45 minutes or an hour.
Yeah, good. So welcome. So I'm Valerie Kausen.
And I'm Gary Heine.
And, we're dedicated to our own self-awareness and upliftment out of our own past habits that don't serve, and also in serving other people and getting out of theirs.
Mm-hmm. And I was in the coffee business for many years, and had over 100 employees and co-founded a number of nonprofits with Valerie and other people. And one of the things I learned was that small steps create big changes in life, and that's the way you change your own life, and that's the way you change your city, and that's the way you change the world. And so very interested in small steps. What small steps can we take together that can be very powerful, and that we can see effects, positive effects in our lives right away. So we've been following that path for a while.
Yeah. So this is fun to put together. So I'm looking forward to sharing this with you today. All right. So we'll get started with our overview of what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to learn 3 powerful insights about how our habits, how we create them, and how we can change them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So our habits and behaviors create our world.
And this is something we start at when we're infants, even before when we're inside our mother developing. We start creating the habits that we run our life with, and they become automatic, and we continue to use those habits to run our life, and that's what our life turns out to be as the result of many of the habits that we've created throughout our life.
Yeah. So the opportunity to really reshape the way we think and the way we act and the way we present ourselves in the world is really an exciting thing that we're just now finding out the simplicity of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the second thing that we're going to go over is how to change those undesired habits by changing your brain through these personal success rituals.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to go into this a little bit more later, but I just wanted to say a habit is an unconscious action or behavior or way of thinking that automatically happens in our life. And the way that a personal success ritual is different is that we really use intention to create a new way of being or a new way of acting or thinking or feeling in our life. And so that's what makes it much more effective to making us have a happy life. So we'll go into that a bit more later.
Yeah, that's really through intention, and habits really are something that's more an unconscious behavior. That's how we've been defining it, the difference between those two things. All right, so how to reprogram your brain, our brain, with compassion to be healthier, happier, and more connected to those you love.
Yeah, and this is something that we've really learned a lot about in the last few weeks with the Dalai Lama being in Louisville. And it's a very simple thing to learn that compassion is really at the core of who we are. It's in our DNA, and we can use it in very simple ways to totally change our lives.
Yeah, so balancing all that we're doing, all that we have, all that we need to do, and all of the ways in which our brain is being pulled in different directions by our distractions, and creating some space for something else to emerge. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, is creating some spaces for other things to emerge.
And if anybody has any questions, let's see, Whitney is asking for more volume.
So I'm hoping that you can hear us all right. And if you can't, good now. Okay, great. All right. So thank you. And I don't know that name, so I'm glad to meet you there.
Marshall, yes, thank you.
Marshall. All right.
But if anyone does have any questions and that's in on the computer and wants to ask us on the chat, please feel free while we're talking to just type them in, okay?
Yes. All right, so we're going to start with our first point, which is how your habits and behavior create your world.
Yeah, it used to be thought, I remember this just a few years ago, hearing this, that you couldn't change or add any new brain cells to your brain. Whatever you were born with or you developed in your childhood, that's what you were sort of stuck with your whole life. But now they're finding the last few years that that's not true at all, that the brain can change. We can change our brain and add new neural pathways. And so they've developed this term called neuroplasticity to indicate that the brain is plastic or more resilient and movable.
Yeah, changeable, which is good for those of us who have sort of questionable pasts, that we can actually grow our neurons and our brain cells again, the ones that
That's right, the ones that we lost.
All right, so those new neural pathways can support our behaviors and thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
That we can actually intend for something new to happen.
Mm-hmm. And that's very exciting, and it gives me a lot of hope to think that I can actually create new behaviors with intention in my life, and my brain will support me by creating the pathways to make that easier and easier to do on a regular basis.
Yeah, so the circuitry grows to support what we repeatedly do. So that obviously means that if we're doing things that are hurting ourselves, that is also something that can be hurting our pathways. But in the other end, when we do something that actually supports us, that opens up the pathway for that to become an easier and something that we can come back to and easier. Yeah. All right. So understanding the three parts of the brain. So we do have three parts of the brain, which is fascinating to me too. And understanding those can help us really have more compassion for ourselves along the journey of change.
Mm-hmm. And we're just going to go into this really lightly because it's very complex, of course. So if anybody gets cross-eyed with scientific diagrams of the brain, just take a deep breath, and it'll just be a minute here. There it is.
There it is. Yeah. All right. There's the brain. So there are three parts of the brain that we're going to talk about today, just as Gary said, as an overview. So the reptilian brain.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the limbic system, which came later, the old mammalian brain or the limbic system. And then the more modern part of the brain or the neocortex. And when I say more modern, that means it could have been 100 million years ago, but it was, in the scheme of our development, it was more modern. And scientists who study the way humans develop and study the way we've developed over hundreds of millions of years from our animal ancestors, believe that the reptilian brain was the first brain that was used by snakes and lizards, and then we added, as we got more complex, we added on these other brains over time. So the reptilian brain is considered the housekeeping brain. As I said, snakes and lizards, that's the brain that they use, and it deals with the automatic the basics of existence: hunger, fight or flight, sex, defending your territory, And the fight or flight response is the big one that we hear a lot about in the reptilian brain, and it's what really creates a lot of fear and anxiety in our life, because 100 million years ago, fear and anxiety on a regular basis in our life was a good thing. It kept us alive to always be alert, because we were, our ancestors were always in danger of, a predator or an accident. And so this overriding anxiety and fear, this fight or flight response, is something that was very beneficial. And it still is, but as we've developed over hundreds of millions of years, we don't need to fight, and we don't need to fly as much, but the system keeps kicking in. So we'll learn a little bit about that and how we can just sort of open and soften and tell our nervous system that things are okay.
Yeah, so that's a much more reactive part. And then came the limbic system, which in very basic terms is the brain that we share with dogs and cats.
Mm-hmm. That's where emotions came into it.
Right, so it's much more of the feeling part of us. It's the part that can actually connect with other beings at a more sensory level. Yeah, so this is the part that controls mood and memory and hormone control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then comes
The thinking brain.
neocortex.
Yes.
The newest brain structure.
Right, that we share with primates, and it's really our social brain. It's our tool-making brain. And as humans developed, and the neocortex got larger in humans, it's the part of the brain that really allowed us to develop language.
Yeah, and it's also about the social interactions, of how we can actually see a larger concept or see how we fit into things.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than it be so reactive.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not just based on what's happening in the moment, it's actually based on a bigger view of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Now, Rick Hansen is a neuroscientist who writes really beautifully about the brain, and he talks about how the reptilian brain really focused on avoiding harm. That's the fight or flight part of the brain. Whatever it took to avoid harm, that's what the reptilian brain focused on. And then when emotions came into it, the limbic system focused on moving towards rewards. So the things that gave our ancestors pleasure or made them feel fed or taken care of is what they moved towards. And then the thinking brain focused on attaching to people like us and to other people, more the social brain. And so you can see that each of these brains do us a lot of good, but they focus on different things. So sometimes when they get at cross purposes, they can make things a little bit confusing and stressed.
Yes. So, why is it good to know about these three parts of the brain?
Well, for that reason, sometimes the stress that we feel, the distress, the confusion we feel isn't all of ours. It's our brains sort of clicking at cross purposes.
Yeah, so...
But this is the big one, that we think we're in control of our world with our thinking brain. We think we can use logic to decide what we want to do and where we want to go and how we want to be in the world, but it's really the older, more instinctual and emotional parts of our brain that actually control most of what we do.
Yeah, so those reactions and reactivities that we have that sometimes feel like they come out of nowhere can be brought on by this place that we don't have a deep connection with in our mental faculties, the one that has come later, that it's actually come into relationship with these at a different experience, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it very well, but hopefully you're understanding that sometimes the reactions that we have, we don't understand. The three parts of the brain haven't really been talking to each other. So this is the conundrum that we face at this time, is how to connect the dots of where we've come from, feeling beings, and then also bringing it into this larger context of how we interact with each other, how we interact with the earth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes we're at odds with ourself. Yeah. Sometimes the parts come and they take over and we don't know why.
Right. Like, is anybody out there, just raise your hand if it's true, ever wanted to do something from an emotional place, felt very strongly about something, but their thinking brain, the logic said, no, I don't really want to do that, and caused a big conflict? Or vice versa. You wanted to do something logically with your thinking brain, but then emotionally, because of past history or something that's gone on in the past, your emotional brain is going, let's put on the brakes here. And so this can really cause distress, confusion, conflict. That's happened to me a few times.
Yes, and I can see it's happened to a few of you out there as well. Thank you for letting us know that. So it's a deep journey of getting to know oneself through our reactive, our feeling self, and our thinking part. That's now the bigger picture, the concept of how to interact with the world as it is in all of its complexities, with our very primal or reptilian self that's still very active.
And it's good to know that all three of those parts of our brain, of your brain, are taking care of you in their own way. But it's also good for us to be able to tell parts of our brain that everything's going to be all right, that they don't have to go into overdrive, fight or flight is okay. And these are the kind of things that can really help us repattern our nervous system so that we can be more relaxed and more open and more stress-free in our lives.
Yeah. So knowing the three parts of the brain, that they all want to care for us in their own way. They want to keep us safe. They want to keep us connected, or they want to move us away from harm. But sometimes they're, as we said, in conflict, and they're not always in harmony. So how can we change undesired habits by changing the brain? Yeah?
So let's see where we've been. This is where we've been and where we're going. Yes? No?
Our actions and thinking, how we see the world, become habitual over time. So we find a behavior that has at least short-term benefit for us, and that can be brought from our childhood, that we have learned something in our childhood and brought it forward, and so we do it habitually now because it worked in the past, but it may not be working for us anymore.
Right.
So
we repeat the behavior to gain the benefit. New neurons grow in the brain to support this new behavior, and that's how habits are created. But as we get old, as we turn into adults, a lot of the things that we learned as children don't serve us anymore. We outgrow the behaviors and thoughts, the habits that we've brought with us from childhood.
Yeah, so we need to create new, healthier habits. And so a lot of us have different kinds of things that we do on a daily basis to bring ourselves calm and peace and to bring us back to center. But we're going to just talk a little bit about why that's important in creating these success rituals, because it actually changes our brain. When we come back to stillness, when we come back to a sense of connection with self, that we actually change our brain. And then I believe that we forget this when we're so distracted in the morass of everything coming at us all the time, that we think it's just something else to do, to be quiet, to meditate, to find our center. But in actuality, what we're doing is creating pathways so that we can live inside of compassion. We can live inside of a place that actually has more caring and generosity from it. So we just want to talk about those new behavior patterns, the neural pathways that are being created through these success rituals.
So to expand a little bit on the difference between a habit and a success ritual, a habit is, again, an unconscious behavior that we repeat to gain a benefit. And you may decide that the benefit has become over time not good for you anymore. It doesn't work for you. So a success ritual is a behavior that you create with intention, and again, to gain a benefit, but the intention, bringing the intention to the behavior adds a powerful part. So
when we're creating these success rituals, and we'll talk more about exactly what that is in a few minutes, but you are harnessing your power and your ability to move into a new direction and to transform your life, to aim yourself in the direction of connection, of rebooting your system, which I say quite often, that it's like turning your computer off and turning it back on, and your pathways are fired up again and connected with each other. So these rituals can bring us back to that place of clarity, and it doesn't take very long. It can be a very short
and
path.
when the intention brings thinking from the thinking brain and emotions from the emotional brain, it creates a very powerful synthesis for all three parts of the brain to work together on new behaviors.
Right, so they have a new friendship rather than being at odds so much. They actually have some points of softness, of connection, where the reptilian brain can feel like it's safe and relaxed, the emotional body can calm, and the thinking part doesn't have to be in so much of a all the time worried about everything. Yeah. All right. So healthy success rituals can help all of the parts of the brain work together. We just say it over and over again so that we really remember it doesn't take very much to create these new pathways. So it takes about 30 days, some people say, to create a new habit. And through these success rituals, we want to create new pathways and new neurons so that our brain actually goes in that direction automatically.
Right.
So that it's not a struggle anymore.
That's right.
All right.
So when we first start creating these new intentional habits or success rituals, it seems to be easy at first because we're excited about it, about this new thing that we're trying. And so for a week or so, it's pretty easy. But then as you get into 10 days, 2 weeks, some of the old patterns of thinking and being that you already have the brain neurons built for start to compete and with this new behavior. And so old habits die hard, they say. So that's when you have to sort of check your checklist, keep noticing all those check marks that you're putting in all the days that you're creating this new success ritual, and keep going. And then, because then around day 22, 23, you start getting to the top of the learning curve, and then this powerful momentum builds up that sort of drops you into day 30. And then by the time that 30 days is up, you've created these new structures in your brain, and they are supporting you now.
Yeah, so you do that in an easier way than you did the other thing, because now it's your new habit. So just to review a little bit of where we've been, we've talked about how your habits and behaviors create your world.
And this is something that we start when we're in our mother's womb, and as infants and small children, we create these habits to create benefits in our life that creates basically the way we operate in the world.
Yeah. So we covered change undesired habits by changing your brain through these very easy personal success rituals.
Which we're going to go into in a few minutes a little bit more, and talked about the three parts of the brain and how they work together to protect us and help us, but they also work at cross purposes sometimes.
Yeah. So the next topic that we're going to cover is how to reprogram our brain and life with compassion to be healthier, happier, and more connected to those you love. So this is about opening ourselves to care about other people.
And it's been very interesting with the Dalai Lama in town over the past couple of weeks. And Louisville has declared itself a compassionate city. So it's this journey and adventure into compassion that's really been exciting the last month or so to really explore.
So compassion is just that simple. It's about caring for the well-being of someone else, or caring for your own well-being. That you can actually feel like you care how someone else is faring in life. That you actually care about their well-being, you care about their happiness.
And if they're suffering, you want to ease their suffering.
Yeah.
And then related to compassion is forgiveness and tolerance and love.
Right. So I love this quote from Mother Teresa. And she says, the biggest disease today is not leprosy or tuberculosis, but rather the feeling of not belonging. And that feeling of not belonging, I believe, comes from this disconnect where we have forgotten that we are a part of a matrix of support, that we, in our ancient selves, were tribal creatures, where we actually depended on other people for our survival. And even though we forget that we depend on other people now, we do. Mm-hmm. Most of our food and our energy needs, and people to come and take care of us when we're sick, and people making different kinds of supplements for us, everything pretty much that we use in our life is made by somebody else. So this web, we forget that we're part of this web, and that web is strengthened by our compassionate nature.
Mm-hmm. And this quote by Mother Teresa goes to the core of compassion that is so important, I think, and that is compassion includes compassion for ourselves. And so not having this compassion, this tolerance, this forgiveness for ourselves is what makes us feel like we don't belong.
Yeah. And the story that I heard about the Dalai Lama some time ago, that he was asked by a teacher, a meditation teacher, what is self-hatred? And the Dalai Lama looked very bewildered and asked many questions about what this meant, self-hatred. And it came to be understood that he couldn't comprehend how someone could hate themselves, that it's not a part of his culture or his understanding. His understanding is that the Buddha nature resides in each one of us, and how can you hate that? Mm-hmm. But it brought to my awareness, and to the person who was recounting this story, about this self-hatred being a Western disease. Mm-hmm. And that lack of compassion for self, that lack of connection, is what has created the imbalance and the havoc that's in our world right now. Disconnection from nature, disconnection from place, disconnection from our food, disconnection from even our loved ones through all the technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and I saw my typo there, it said, "Hi, Dalai Lama." So His Holiness was here in Louisville not too long ago, and many of us had the opportunity to be with him and to partake of his many blessings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he spoke while he was here of the last century being the century of wars and violence, which when you think about it, which makes sense, and we know that. And it was interesting to hear him talk about that. And then he spoke of this century is the century of compassion, and that was began this very interesting adventure into compassion and really understanding it more, about how it's such a part of us. It's in our DNA, and how turning to that compassion that's part of us, it's not anything we have to learn. We just have to remember it. It became a very exciting, past month.
Yeah, so these success rituals are actually growing our compassion. It's the ability to actually connect with our innate compassion, which we'll speak about in a moment, but actually to grow it. And what an interesting thing that we can cultivate compassion, that it's not something that we were either given or not given, that we can actually bring more of it upon ourselves by how we think, intend, and act in the world.
A couple of days before the Dalai Lama was here, we heard James Doty speak, and he's a neurosurgeon from Stanford University who's been working with the Dalai Lama for the past 20 years, studying meditators, among other things. And he's wired up monks who meditate a lot, wired up their scalp and their skin. He's put them in MRIs to really study what happens when these folks meditate, and what parts of the brain fire, and when they are feeling compassionate and really working to nurture their compassion, what parts of the brain fire. And so they were able to find out where compassion, that meditation actually builds and grows compassion. So that's how they were able to explore this.
Yeah, that's very fascinating to me that it was just a short amount of a study, a couple of weeks even, that the Dalai Lama and James Doty, the neurosurgeon, have actually been working together for many decades and supporting the scientific understanding of how meditation changes the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And how different practices, obviously, I'm sure as well, but this one in particular, they were studying the scientific changes in the brain when meditators were meditating.
Yeah.
Yes. So as we said, there's a biological part of compassion that we're actually born with compassion. And then there's a part that we can actually develop, which I just think that is so lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's at the core of who we are.
Because again, if we didn't have compassion over the last 200 million years, if we didn't have empathy for the people in our tribe, they could end our life, and so it was something that helped us survive and helped our descendants survive. So it really got built into our DNA, so that compassion became hormonal in our body, and it's something that's just as real as our fingernails or our hair.
Yeah, and I enjoy the idea that this empathy and compassion can actually reinvigorate more of our ability to take care of one another and take care of the earth. That maybe our idea of meditation when we sit or do another kind of personal success ritual is that we're not really doing it for anybody else, but the fact is that we're doing it to create a better world, because when we have a sense of compassion, then we can connect with other people's compassion. And all of us have had the experience, I'm sure, where we can actually feel when we are connecting with someone from that place of compassion that it grows.
And one of the things that was so interesting to me was the idea of not only can we build compassion in ourselves and it can make us healthier and happier, but it can do the same thing for people we're around.
Yeah. So I love this as well. My beautiful niece Jessica, who is an amazingly compassionate person, that when you're compassionate, it makes you happier. It actually gives to the giver as well as the receiver. And that's a scientific fact that James Doty was also speaking to. So compassion is also related to tolerance and forgiveness and love, and that those are actually our default mechanism, that anything else is we're forgetting.
And so over the past several thousand years, when we began to start to forget that, as humans discovered war, and in the last couple hundred years, as technology took such a hold on us, we got farther and farther away from this ability to connect with ourselves compassionately and connect with others. Technology, Facebook, email, again, brings us away from connection with ourselves and each other, and
but it does create health and well-being. It actually relaxes us when we're compassionate. When we're not being compassionate, we get sick. When we're closed down, our blood pressure goes up. When our stress hormones overreact, when we are more reactive, there's cortisol that fills up our bodies. It's just
stresses us out.
Yeah.
And interesting thing that James Doty was saying was that these effects of building compassion happen very fast. If someone begins a meditation practice or mindfulness practice to grow compassion, they can tell within weeks that they're healthier, they're happier, their blood pressure goes down, their stress hormones are reduced. That's pretty cool.
It is, yeah. So it really is ingrained in us. We want to get back to a caring, compassionate nature, and the competitive and separatist world that we have been born into
Mm-hmm.
through Western mind, through the idea that only the strongest survive, that there's not enough, that
Mm-hmm.
you have to go, get.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if somebody else wins, then you lose.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a sum zero look. It's a, if someone else has it, then you can't have it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with compassion and caring about other people, that it actually grows in the presence, that that it's continually expanding rather than a lack.
Yeah, you say that a lot, Valerie, that there's a lot of scarcity thinking around, and we think there's not enough, for us, or whatever it is, but really compassion, connecting to the compassion really helps us connect into the abundance, within ourselves and with each other.
Yes. So the science is now being able to validate my intuition and my knowing and my feeling body. So my limbic system is happy at the moment.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So we've all heard survival of the fittest.
It's a horrible myth that we've been sold for many years that is not true. Only the strong survive, survival of the fittest. Not true.
No, survival of the kindest. That is actually how we survived. Our ancestors survived was by coming together. That it was the only way that we could actually move through time and survive the elements and survive the big animals and all of that. That we actually had to work together.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a pretty cool thing to think. We survived because we're the kindest.
Yeah.
Like that.
And I believe that it's the only way that we're going to make it through this predicament that we find ourselves in, is to come back to our kindness for
Mm-hmm.
the earth, kindness for each other, really caring about other people's well-being and other creatures' well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, where we have been, how our habits and behaviors create our world.
Right.
Yeah.
How we can change the habits we don't need or want anymore by changing our brain, by creating these personal success rituals, and how we can reprogram our brain and our life with compassion, and will make us healthier, happier, and more connected to those we love, and happen very fast.
So it's a direct link that when we change our behaviors, when we change our habits through simple intentional actions, that compassion is the byproduct, and the world becomes a nicer place to live in.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you say it's easy?
It seems easy to me as far as this equation looks. So we want to talk about mindfulness, and mindfulness itself is really just the act of being aware. So it's becoming aware of thoughts, becoming aware of feelings, becoming aware of actions, and becoming intentional. So when we slow down enough to acknowledge where we're at, how we feel, and what we are wanting, that life changes, that our nervous system gets more relaxed, that we actually come into a more deeper relationship with our body.
Yeah.
All right. So we want to move into our finale of the 2-minute success ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted to offer something that you could take home with you, and that is accessible to most of us, I would say, that we could find at least 1 2-minute period every day
Mm-hmm.
where we can set aside this space for something different to arise,
Mm-hmm.
for our innate compassion to arise.
And we're gonna try a 2-minute success ritual here in just a minute, but we wanted you to be thinking about a 2-minute success ritual that you'd be willing to commit to every day for the next 30 days, and just to see the powerful effect that these intentional ways of creating new thinking and new ways of being, the effect they can have in your life. So as you think of one, we'll give you some examples, but you might come up with your own also. You can write it in the chat box if you like.
But first, we're going to do this 2-minute ritual.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are able to find yourself in a quiet space. If you're driving,
Don't do this.
Don't do this. No, do this in your own way. So if you are in a place where you can close your eyes, you can go ahead and close your eyes or look at this beautiful picture on the screen here. And I want you to just feel how you feel in this moment. Check in. What's your state of body, your state of mind? How's your breathing? Are you worried about anything? What's going on? So find yourself now coming closer to your breath. And what I mean by that is just start becoming aware. So you can follow that breath in and follow it out. So there's nothing to worry about in this moment. I'm keeping track of the time, and I'm just reminding you to come back to the awareness of your breath. So perhaps you're feeling your mind and your body relaxing just with this easy, simple awareness, noticing your breath. Just like watching the tide go in and out. Gently becoming more aware of the sensations in your body. Just using this tool, the breath, to become more present. So just take several more breaths on your own. And coming back into your normal breathing, opening your eyes if you like. So that was a 2-minute personal success ritual. Just that amount of time can help change the nervous system, can change your thought patterns, can rejuvenate you so that you can be kinder to yourself and kinder to other people. So we want to share a few ideas with you, and I want you just to feel into how you feel now in comparison to when you started that exercise. Perhaps there was a little bit more relaxation in the body. Yeah, whatever it is, just notice that. All right, so some ideas that we have for you, and obviously you can have your own ideas too, but one is that one that we just did of noticing your breath. Another is self-validation. Some people call it affirmation or a mantra, but you could come up with a short phrase that you just say to yourself over and over.
Works great in stressful situations to just say, I'm at peace in this moment. I'm at peace in this moment. It also is a great way, saying something like that in stressful situation is a great way to sort of help your reptilian brain experience life in a different way, because the reptilian brain wants to get the fight or flight mechanism going. So if you can say, I am at peace in this moment, or whatever, everything's okay, I am safe, I am taken care of, I am relaxed, that's the way you begin to break down this background of fear and anxiety that has been building in us for hundreds of millions of years.
Yeah. So another easy way is just to move your body. So even walking around the dining room table a couple of times can shift the thinking pattern. So if you put on your timer 2 minutes and just allow your body to move, your arms to move side to side.
Right. There's something about the arms moving side to side that is really powerful in balancing your brain. And something as simple as a couple of strolls around the dining room table and then going the other way, doing that for 2 minutes can really work powerful wonders.
Yeah. So also a little bit of a body meditation that you can do very simply is to put the middle and forefinger of each hand on the opposite elbow. So it's like you're crossing your arms, but you have your forefinger and your middle finger on your elbows.
And the idea is that this is a way to balance the energy in your body, and so you wait for a pulse, the energy pulse in both of those spots where your index and middle finger tips touch your elbow. If you just be patient, you'll feel a pulsation. Then you wait for the pulsation to synchronize at the same time. And when that happens, you have balanced the energy in your body through those 2 points, and it will help bring you into your body, and it's very deeply relaxing.
And then an eating ritual, which most of us never do, which we just sort of are on autopilot of how we eat and how we partake of our meals and our drink and everything. So slowing down and setting a timer and taking 2 minutes to actually chew each bite 30 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So those are just a few ideas.
Journaling would be another one. All kinds. I'm
Yeah.
sure you're thinking of.
Yes, you guys are creative, I'm sure. So what are you willing to create as a personal success ritual and commit to for this next 30 days? And this is an opportunity to have some accountability for this time. So if you think about it, it's committing to 1 hour over the next month to better your life, to relax your nervous system, to know that you can actually get to a new behavior. Yeah, that you can create a new personal success ritual that only takes 2 minutes a day. So what are those things? And if you would like to type them in the box, you're welcome to. And those are things that you want to use a timer for and track. So we'll be sending you a list that you can print out and track for 30 days.
Checklist, yeah.
Or you can do it in one of your fancy phones or whatever you want, however you want to track it. But it's nice to actually see the progress, to feel the progress, to illuminate that path so that you know you've come from somewhere and that you're doing something that is beneficial.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Gary, what are you going to commit to for the next 30 days?
I will try I think I'll try that 2-minute breathing. I like that. It made me feel very relaxed.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the elbow one, the points.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to do that one for the next 30 days. So whatever you decide and however it is that you want to participate, we will be having more interaction around this and sending you some follow-up emails about how you're doing and just connecting with you. So I hope that can become a part of your life for the next 30 days, because even those 2 minutes really, they really, really make a huge difference in life. Yeah. So Whitney's asking if the rotation of something would defeat it. So anything with intention is a good day. So I don't know that it's so much about doing exactly the same thing, but I think the same period of time with the same intention, with the same tracking mechanism, creates the idea of success in the nervous system.
And whether you rotate or not, you're taking 2 minutes a day to really nurture yourself. And so that's the overriding theme. That sounds great.
Yeah. So these kinds of 2-minute interventions, if you will, can be done at any time. Most of them are something that most other people would not even know that you are doing, but it's like first aid for the nervous system. Yeah. And it brings out compassion. It actually grows compassion when we take these moments. So.
Oh.
So for those who are on the phone, there's a photo of a tree holding a sign that says, "Need help from my family in the rainforest." And I don't know, this picture always makes me just feel connected to the natural world and to each other, because, everything that we do matters. Every little thing, every big thing, it actually affects the world, and it affects our own nervous system. So we really hope that we have been of service to you today. And I know that it has been of service to us to be able to show up with you and share some of the things that we've been thinking about and what we've been learning and what we've been implementing in our own lives.
Yeah, really grateful that you took the time to be with us today.
Yeah. So if there are any questions or any comments, Whitney's been our big cheerleader and an interactive person, and I really...
Marshall too. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Really appreciate you being here. So we will be in touch with you, and may you find peace in those 2-minute moments, and remember that we're all beginners. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. You enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.